Over the years of using Facebook Marketplace, I've encountered individuals, many different types of individuals, but certain things are always persistent, and that is a certain moral compass or certain lack of respect for fellow humans. And it's the way they approach situations, either as buyers or sellers, and so forth and so on. Basically, these situations have all happened to me personally, and these are 1,000% fact. So Facebook Marketplace, for example, for me, I've always handled myself in a very respectful way towards others as a buyer or as a seller. For example, if I'm buying something from somebody, if certain things aren't mentioned in the ad, I'd always ask, "Hi, how are you today? Is this item still available? I'm very interested and can come pick up as soon as possible. Otherwise, if it doesn't work right now, when are you available?" And of course, if there's, let's say, there's not as many pictures as I would like to see a certain specific item, I always ask, "Hey, is there any issues pertaining to this? Can you please send me more pictures?" and so on. But generally going off of, let's say, whatever pictures they have and the description, generally speaking, it's always a go. But just to, clarify and confirm everything rather than show up and notice something that somebody might be hiding and so on. Which takes me to this point, where at one point somebody was selling these wrestling, WWE wrestling belts. And they all looked very authentic. They literally looked like the replicas, the actual metallic metal, adult replicas, where those go for an average of $300 to $1,000 each. And the person had it for like $20 each, and there was like a whole array of them. And I'm like, damn, like something doesn't make sense here. And I was right. I went out of my way. I even asked the person, "Hey, these are actually the authentic replicas?" And they're like, "Yes, they're adult, but they're a bit smaller." So I figured they're more of the, on the, not on the miniature side, but kind of a smaller scale, not as, I don't know if there is such a thing, but at the time I thought, the bigger ones, they're a bit like more so kids, like replicas. But so I show up and they're basically the foam versions. They're toys. And I'm like looking at the person. Of course, I'm not going to flip out or anything. I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I thought this was something else." But there in that situation, I lost 50 plus minutes of my time traveling there and back. And of course, conversating with that person on top. The other minutes that I spent talking to that person prior. So basically, in this person's reality, they thought, okay, I'm going to lie to this person. They'll come here. Even though this is not what they were seeking or what they presumed it was, for some reason, I somehow would still buy all those items, which I don't understand how any sane or rationally, logically, emotionally thinking human would come to that conclusion. Then there's been situations, for example, where an item, it's a collector's item that I had, for example, once. It was worth $120 market value. So generally, if I waited, if I was patient, that's what I could get for it and people would buy it for. I was like, I just want it out of my way. $80 I put it up for. So basically, whoever's looking for that item is going to get it for $40 cheaper, right? So a person messaged me, say, "Hey, I'm interested in coming by." He's messaged me back and forth. All of a sudden ignores me. No word of a lie. Like I said, all these stories are 1,000% authentic. So they ignore me. Literally nothing, not even, "Hey, I'm sorry, something came up." Messages me like a week later when that item shoots up to actually $200 market value. And I'm selling it at $80. I still have it up at $80. And they're like, "Hey, I can come right now." And I'm like looking, I'm like, something doesn't make sense. So I searched up the value. That's how I noticed, okay, I'm like, this must have went up. And I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry. If you're interested, I can sell it to you for $120. Basically, the person's still getting it for $80 cheaper. Because I'm not going to lose out. If you want to, you're not going to make me a fool. And you're still getting it. Even then, I'm not being ridiculous. So, I could have said, "Hey, it's worth $200. I'll give it to you for $150, $160, $180. In logical thinking, you're still making, saving money, that individual who's buying it. I just said, "Hey, okay," because this person, didn't respect my time or the effort. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to lose money. I'm not in a rush to sell it. $120 and yours. And basically they're like, no, we agreed to $80. I'm like, bro, And the thing is, I've learned over the years, you cannot talk to these people or conversate intellectually with them. I've learned not long ago not to bother interacting with them in a way to basically explain to them how irrational their approach is. So I said, okay, sorry, it's not for you. I don't really want to sell it. Thank you. Leave the chat. Just don't waste your time with these type of people. Basically, initially, he was saving $40. Probably didn't want it at that time. Didn't want to go out of his way. He's probably a reseller. So he sees, okay, still at 80. Now it's worth 200. If I buy it from Buddy, he's going to make $120 off me. So in the end, I'm not going to be made to look a fool out of somebody's indirect disrespect. So, of course, and this is not from me, like, dealing with a one-off individual and just being greedy in that situation. So I was like, you know what? I'll give it to you for $120. It did go up crazily in price. He's still getting it for $80 cheaper. If it was somebody, who really wanted it, to them, that's a no-brainer. But, yeah, when it comes to certain type of people on Facebook Marketplace, it's better not to even waste your time with them. Then there was this one person who me and him were going back and forth in regards to, I believe it was a trade. It was a trade of some sort where basically he's getting the better end of the trade. I just wanted the items gone. Basically, he is a confirmed reseller that I know locally. And he's basically getting, I believe it was like up to $100 more in the deal. To me, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to waste my time, yada, 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 And we're going back and forth, and you'd think, okay, it's going to go through. The person literally at the point where I say, hey, when are you able to meet? He literally ignores me for a month, okay? So the initial couple days after, I kind of open the marketplace messages, and I look, okay, no reply. And after 2-3 days, anybody normal would be like, okay, I'm not going to bother looking into this. This is obviously not going through. I go to my Facebook Marketplace profile. All of a sudden, he left a review somehow, of course, giving me a 1-star rating saying how I ignored him, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like confused. I look back in the messages. He literally, 30 plus days after the initial deal, when I said the last message from my end, when are you able to meet? Literally 30 plus days after, says to me, like basically as if the conversation's like from the prior night or something. And of course, I'm not looking into it. I'm not expecting any normal human to be trying to get a deal from 30 plus days ago. You know what I mean? That's like, okay, you think that's one and done. Like there's nothing, So in this person's mind, I should basically be at his beck and collar. And since I didn't reply to him ignoring me for 30 plus days, and it's not genuine, I didn't see that he replied. You're not looking because 30 plus days goes by. Who's expecting somebody to reply? He's out of sight, out of mind. And in his logical reality, somehow, he basically, he's upset and leaves me a 1-star rating. And these are people of Facebook Marketplace. And if it's a reflection of our society at a large, then our society in general is doomed. But you'll have the consistent things. Those are more of the kind of out there, unique situations. For example, with me that happened. And not everybody has their own kind of situations and scenarios. But the consistent thing I find is people don't read ads, or they'll just, as if they have nothing better to do and they go into NPC brain rot mode. They'll basically send messages asking, oh, is this available? Or basically ask questions that you've already answered in the ad. And initially when I started using Facebook Marketplace, I'd always respond, even though I'm like thinking to myself, I've already answered this in the ad. And 9.5 out of 10 times these people would ignore me. So I just started retorting back the way they respond. And that's the best thing to do, is just give them what they give, and that's that. Because no matter how good you are at chess, for example, a pigeon will shit all over that board and strut around like it won the game. And imagine you trying to explain to that pigeon, hey, like that's not how it's done. You're basically peeing in the wind. You're only going to lose in that situation. As well, a prevalent thing that I've come across is resellers. And not only with resellers, this is another thing generally speaking, but as well with resellers specifically. These people want you to go above and beyond for them. They want you to basically deliver it to them. They want to get a deal on a top of a deal. To them, it's not good that they're saving 20, 50, 40, 60, $100. They basically want more and more. And when I've come to realize with these type of individuals, you cannot even give them an inkling of your time, because they'll just waste it, and in the end you're basically just lost at sea. For example, with this other person, different individual, I was selling something and he asked, oh, would you do 40? And I said, yeah, of course, sure, why not? And basically on eBay and anywhere else like that, it goes for $70 before shipping. And the average shipping for that item, you can't find it for anywhere less than 30. So basically, if they were really wanting that, otherwise, people go to eBay, it's hard to find other things like the certain thing I was selling. Basically, they're spending $100. So in that kind of scenario, they're saving $60. He tells me, he's like, oh, I can come by tomorrow. I tell him, okay, I can meet you here. Ignores me for 3-4 days. Okay, well, if something comes up, tell me. I understand life is life, and we're all humans. You don't owe me anything. I don't owe you anything. But it's that common decency, that common level of human respect as civilized people that we do owe each other. It's like, okay, I'd understand if something came up, as long as you're honest, and everybody can tell who's honest and who's not. So long story goes by. He messaged me after a handful of days. And he's like, oh, yeah, are you able to deliver all across from the other side of the city? Basically, to him, it's like, what's the point of me selling it and giving you a huge discount and then losing gas money and gas and time and all this other stuff? Basically, to you, it's not good enough for you that you're saving $60, if not more. Because even if you found it in a local store here, that specific item, you're probably still paying $100, $120, because they factor all that stuff in. It's all manipulation of the market and basically cornering everybody in, basically a roundabout way where you're basically, it's like, oh, well, if you want it now, you can pay $100, or wait a week or 2 weeks plus and get it for $100 from eBay. It's all tactfully done. So what I've learned over time is just basically ignore them. I left the chat. Don't waste your time, because they're just going to waste your time again. You wasted my time once, and you were going to waste it again. And in that scenario, I don't have anything to win from that. I'm actually losing, and you want me to lose even more. Shows you your level of respect on a basic human principle level of existence. Other things I've come across a few times is people who, let's say the item is $40. And I'm like, hey, I'm interested. I can come by right away if you're available, or whenever works for you, we can work something out. They're like, oh, you know what? I'm getting a lot of people interested in it. If you want, though, if you're able to come now, I'll do it for 60 or 80, basically doubling the product's price. And initially they had it for 40. And to me, I'm like, well, it's not worth it. I can just get it brand new or better, or if not cheaper than 40 or 40, somewhere else. And then I say, oh, it's okay, thank you, if I were you, take that deal. And I know they're BSing, right? But it's just, you know what I mean? Just give them what they want, make them seem like they're basically some sort of overlord, and that's that. Then they message me a couple hours later saying, hey, you know what, if you're interested, I still have it, I can do for 40. Basically, their BS didn't work. And of course, I'm like, you wasted my time once. You're going to, basically, if I show up, you're going to pull some other stunt. And then basically I say no, of course. And they say, oh, well, if you're interested, I'll actually do 30 if you can come now. And don't even bother. They're going to try some other tactic of some sort. It's better not to even waste your time with that. But going back to resellers are consistent on Facebook Marketplace from selling everything and anything that's niche and so on. For example, dealing with them is the worst. Basically, they'll try to get more out of you than they, and you can tell. You go to their page, Marketplace profile, and they're selling that kind of stuff. So if you're selling it to them for 20, you look around, they're like, okay, 60, 80. So it's like, and then they want more of a deal. So if let's say I'm selling something for 20, goes for 60, they're like, well, what if I bought these other ones? And then basically they're getting it at like $5 to $10 each. And to me, it's like, no, like, just because you're buying more doesn't mean I'm going to give you even a bigger discount. You're already saving $40+, let's say, on that $20 item. It's like these people basically feel like they're entitled to rip you off, and that you have to understand because they have some sort of hobby or a side gig or job where they resell, and they think they're entitled basically to rip you off, and not even to rip you off, but smoothly rip you off, where they're ripping you, you know what I mean? And they lube it up, and they're like, all right, we're going to go to this level, and you should be okay with that. And I've had that person where I basically say, no, sorry, I'm not doing that, in a respectful way always. And they turn around another 1-star review, basically saying yada, 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 some kind of extravagant lie. And then basically make you look bad in front of others. And then, of course, people who see that are going to presume that's the truth. And how are you going to retort it, So best to avoid resellers as well, unless you yourself specifically deal with reselling. But otherwise, yeah, these are some of my kind of clustered stories from Facebook Marketplace. And if you're interested in more and more detailed stories, and you interact with these type of people, follow, subscribe, and like. Tell me a story in the comment section of something that's happened to you on Facebook Marketplace, either as a seller or a buyer. What is truly the craziest Facebook Marketplace story?